if you want to be a good artist, there always needs to be a certain amount of self-doubt. But I felt it was like a clean slate. I could be anyone I wanted. A lot of my work is about propaganda and indoctrination, female empowerment, and telling a different story about how we relate to women and how we see women, because I know what it's like to having left your country to seek freedom. It went from something I was ashamed of to something I was actually quite proud of, and that means everything.
Hi, I'm Elian Reddy and welcome to Foreign Influence.
It doesn't.
We're good. Drama, controversy.
So she was the driver for
love to design all that thing. People who trusted me with sharing their stories.
Hi, I'm Elian Reddy and welcome to Foreign Influence. Today we're visiting an artist who grew up during Cold War, behind the Iron Curtain, and now she's in Australia making history. Packing Room Prize winner in the Archibald, Kathrin Longhurst. Kathrin, thank you for having us in your beautiful studio amongst your magnificent murals.
Thank you for coming to visit. You know, being an artist is such a lonely existence. Anyone coming to my studio, it's actually quite an exciting thing.
And I love your muse for today, Roxy. She welcomed us.
Yes, she's my very loyal studio dog who keeps me sane.
You and I have something in common. We grew up during Cold War, behind the Iron Curtain. What was that like for you? Do you remember much from your early childhood?
I do. I was 15 when we left, and that was 2 years before the wall came down. So in '87 we moved to Sweden.
You were born in East Berlin.
Yeah, both my parents are German, and I spent my entire childhood in East Berlin, which is sort of crazy to think about it now, like the crazy childhood we had. And the only place on the planet that I can compare with now is really North Korea. The inability to travel anywhere. We're allowed to travel to Hungary or Poland or, you know, other East Bloc countries, but you couldn't travel to the West. You couldn't read what you want. All the books in the bookstores were censored. There was only a certain type of books you were allowed to buy. Everything you watched on television had to be approved by the political party. The kind of fear amongst people of there's always someone listening in.
Yeah, the phone calls were always monitored.
And not being able to say what you really feel and how you really think, always being scared that that could land you in trouble is pretty frightening, because there's a whole generation of people that has learned to disguise their feelings and their thoughts and become just numbed to the world.
How did you live Eastern Berlin?
My mum, beautiful mum, she always tried to get us out, and for her the only way was to find a Westerner that would marry her and get her out of the country.
And probably not just even to get out, but maybe just share life with someone who represented that freedom.
My parents divorced quite early. She ended up marrying a Swedish construction worker, and we moved to Sweden when I was 15. But at the time leading up to that, it took them about 5 years of applications being rejected and them having to prove that their relationship is
legitimate.
And in that time, all of a sudden she came from being a member of the party to becoming an enemy of the state, because she was now liaising with Westerners and was a danger to society. Yeah, it was a pretty tough time, and I think Mum never really told us the full scope of what was going on during that time, because the less we knew as children, the safer we were. In year 9 in school, we had civil defense classes where we would learn, first aid, but also had to listen to the sirens.
Lockdown drills, like for nuclear war.
Yeah, exactly. Or how to handle weapons.
And how to run with the gas mask on.
That's right.
Yeah, you couldn't pass the
Oh
year.
my God, I can't believe it. Yeah, you went through that too.
Oh, yes. Well, that Cold War, I can really see the influence that you have had from your childhood. How do you think that translates into your art?
I think it has a lot of influence on my work. Being under a regime where you weren't allowed to travel, where you got indoctrinated from a very early age, where we would learn how to read and write with tanks and soldiers in our school books, the early militarization. I'm really excited that I was able to live through that, because it gives you a very different perspective on life. A lot of my work is about propaganda and indoctrination, and I'm using the visual language of propaganda art, of socialist realism, to tell my own story and to further my own agenda, which of course is all about female empowerment and telling a different story about how we relate to women and how we see women. As you can see, like, all my works feature female subjects.
Yeah, I feel like your portraits, they contain certain qualities of character, and these are human universal qualities that we can all relate to, such as strength and determination, and I can really see it. So your muses, I see that this person keeps recurring.
Yes.
Is it someone special in your life?
One of my favorite models. She's my daughter.
I would say very special person in your life.
Very special person. I tend to work with the same models over and over again, because you then move away from having to work so hard on creating a likeness. You know their faces so intimately, and then you can start working with the expression in their face, with little details that tell a story more. You're saying that you feel that these works exude strength and power. I love that you're pointing that out, because that's what I sort of want my work to be about. All through history, we've seen artworks with male protagonists. The strong person, the hero in each painting is usually a man. And when women were portrayed, they were a decorative side object, and preferably in nude somewhere in the background. In media, on television and advertising, if we don't see strong female role models, if we don't see strong female idols and heroes, it's what we can't see, we can't be. I think, especially since the Me Too movement, people really crave this new version of what women can be and how we portray them. I just want to contribute to that movement.
Like I said, strength and power, but also there is fragility and femininity, because the eyes and the lips, you're making it so feminine and beautiful, and the hair, but yet very fierce kind of poses at the same time.
You're so right. I don't want to have a male version of women where they're just really masculine. As a society, we need to learn to appreciate feminine traits. We've seen that during the pandemic, that caring and nurturing and looking after people, which are sort of seen as feminine traits, haven't really been valued that much, and have often been professions in that industry that mainly employed women. Hospitality and nursing, etc., has been so undervalued, and that's really come to the surface now. I don't ever want my models to look like a man. I want people to appreciate femininity as well as power and strength.
Yeah, celebrate it.
Celebrate
in your
it.
portraits, through your portraits. a child? Like, were you always attracted to art?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. My grandma gave me pen and paper when I could barely sit up. She kept all my drawings from when I was little. In school, I got selected to do extracurricular art after school. And I remember there was a career counsellor coming through school every year, trying to guide them to professions that would be in line with what the government thought we needed. When I every year said, I want to be an artist, I want to be an artist, the career counsellor would always go like, yes, the socialist state does not need any more independent artists. We need product designers. Your career path will be in industrial design or product design. And that was quite frustrating because it was not a market economy. You couldn't just go and choose.
At the age of 15, you moved to Sweden. Mm-hmm. And when did you move to Australia and how?
So I went to high school and university in Sweden, which... Studying business out of all things.
Corporate, yeah.
Because I don't know how you felt when you left the East, but I always felt like I do not want to be seen as the poor cousin from the East. I needed to be a good little capitalist now and make money and sell stuff.
Well, it's a world of commerce, really.
Yeah,
that we entered.
I did like 5 years of business studies at my university in Sweden. Part of that, I did an exchange program with a university in West Australia. And I remember I was sharing an apartment with this Canadian student, Jody. We were in Unit 8, and in Unit 4 were all these hot sailors from the Endeavour. And
okay.
And then they invited us over for drinks, and that's where I walked in, and I went like, oh my God, there's a guy that looks just like Antonio Banderas. What was going to be my husband introduced himself. My name is Anthony. And I'm like, oh my God, that's meant to be.
Almost the same.
Yes. That's meant to be. And now we've been married for 25 years, 2 kids later, and as happy as ever. Best decision of my life. We tried to live in Europe for a while. Sydney is home.
What were your first impressions of Australia?
Oh gosh, West Australia is such a generous, hospitable, beautiful place to arrive. I've never felt so welcome anywhere in the world. The Swedish people are quite reserved. It would take a long time to make friends. In Australia, I remember sitting at the side of the road after having missed my school bus to uni, and this little old man came out of his house and offered me a chair to sit on whilst I was waiting for the next bus, things like that. And I was invited along to barbecues and go jet skiing and go, on trips, and I didn't even know these people.
You felt very included.
I felt so included, but I felt it was like a clean slate. I could be anyone I wanted. I think that's sort of the biggest takeaway from coming to Australia. All of a sudden, I went from one out of many in Europe to being quite exotic and different coming to Australia. And everyone was asking me, it's like, oh, wow, you grew up in the East. It went from something I was ashamed of to something I was actually quite proud of. I remember when I came to Sweden, I wouldn't tell anyone that I was from the East. I was German because I didn't want people to know.
You felt like it was a shortcoming?
Yeah, absolutely.
People would judge you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also why I'm really passionate about immigrants that come to this country, refugees. I'm working on a big series of exhibitions that deal with that subject matter because I know what it's like to having left your country to seek freedom and to want to have a better life, and you leave everything behind, your family, your friends, everything. You come to a different place for safety, security, for shelter.
Well, to me, your paintings scream that I am different, and the whole world is loving it. Well, obviously Archibald Prize is loving it because you have been a finalist 3 times, and all the other Solman, Portuguese, all of them are loving it.
It's been a good run. As an artist, I mean, you don't work in a vacuum. Of course, it's important to you that curators and the critics love your work. Especially the Archibald is such a a huge deal for most artists to be a finalist.
Art prize
And you
in
have
Australia.
each year you have like 140,000 people see the exhibition in Sydney alone. You cannot buy that sort of exposure for any money in the world. And having the exhibition and travel around the country and people in other places seeing it it's just fabulous.
Share with us your experience. How were you told that you won the Packing Room Prize?
Oh my God.
I feel like this is the most important one to win, because this is the prize that opens up the whole season, the whole exhibition. And you won it! Well done! What was it like?
It was.
Did you get like a phone call from the Queen? The King now?
I did get a phone call from one of the staff at the gallery. It was just nuts because quite often the kind of publicity that comes with it is bigger than for the actual winner. The great thing about the Packing Room Prize is it's a very popular prize because everyone agrees with the pick. It's picked by staff at the gallery that unpacking the artworks. Their taste is very aligned with what the general public loves. It has to be a celebrity, someone that's recognizable. It has to actually look like them. It was a bit of a crazy time because it was in 2021 and just before our second lockdown. I remember when it was announced on the Thursday, Kate Sobrano, who had painted for the Packing Room Prize, who is just the most divine, gorgeous, beautiful person on the planet. I was super excited to be sharing the stage with her, and I was hoping that she would sort of carry me, that she would do most of the talking and I can just stand there, look pretty. She had just started touring again. And I think her first concert was somewhere in Victoria. And I think there were like 2 COVID cases in Ballarat, and it was seen as a COVID zone. The gallery flew her back for the press conference on the day. And then she was told once she got off the plane that she couldn't come in to the gallery. So I had to do all the interviews myself. And it was so stressful because you had live crosses to television, all the major newspaper asking you questions, and then we were shuttled into the ABC studios and doing radio interviews. And then I came home and the whole house was full of flowers. And
lovely.
I turned my phone back on and there were like hundreds of messages from people that I've missed and people I hadn't spoken to for like 10, 15 years. All of a sudden they're like, oh, remember me? Congratulations. and the funny thing is, like, most people that congratulated me on winning the Archibald, and after a while you just stop arguing because it was really fun because you get to be a celebrity for a while.
Well, you are a celebrity, not for a while. That's it. You made it.
And then Kate was allowed to come to the opening, and
How did you develop that relationship that she set for you?
Both Kate and I are good friends with David Bromley and his wife Yugi. Their support over the years has meant so much to me, from a sense of self-confidence and self-belief in your own work. Kate Sobrano was over at his house and saw my work. I mean, if you want to be a good artist, there always needs to be a certain amount of self-doubt. Because I think otherwise you never develop, you never improve, you never try new things. I think a certain amount of vulnerability, fragility and self-doubt is healthy because it helps you to develop and it helps you to move on and create new things and try new things.
And yet produce something so powerful, even with the self-doubt.
There was a couple of turning points in my career where some very powerful people believed in my work. My works were purchased into big collections, and some people in the industry took me under their wings, encouraged me, and that means everything. When you feel like, okay, I'm making an impact, people are noticing, but also what absolutely made a huge difference, the people I meet at the openings that come up to me and say, hey, I've just purchased one of these paintings because it means this and this and this to me, and it will be a legacy to my daughter because I want her to feel she can do anything. Dads buying paintings for their daughters. CEOs buying a piece for their office because they want to be reminded of how strong and cool and fantastic there can be as a woman in this world. That, is stuff that you cannot buy with any money.
The greatest form of flattery.
You cannot buy stuff like that with any money in the world. It's really that what drives me and what makes me want to paint.
What is your preferred scale? Like, I see that they're not exactly small. You can't put them in a handbag.
No, I like the scale of things. And I mean, you and I, we both grew up in Eastern Europe, right? Yeah. And we're both exposed to these large-scale, monumental,
heroic propaganda,
murals of the leaders and the political elite, but also oversized statues, sculptures of military heroes, workers, and
political
farmers.
leaders.
Exactly. I want to replicate that scale because it involves a sense of awe for the person, right? When you see them on a wall larger than life, you walk up to it and almost having a religious experience when you see someone on a wall looking down at you. So quite often you see I use an angle of looking up at people. So there are certain elements I use in the works, like often the color scheme, so I use a lot of red in my work, red background, which are quite often used in political campaign posters. These particular posters in a monochrome scale and almost like a marble tone to it, because I wanted them to feel almost sculptural, like you're looking at a marble sculpture of a hero. And then obviously the scale, the poses, it's all on purpose. Nothing is accidental.
So your daughter, how old is she now?
Oh, she's 19 now.
19. So last year of being a teenager.
I know.
How does she feel about when you say, oh, it's time for you to pose for me?
We've been working together since she was about 12. The relationship has sort of evolved over time because when we started out working together, it was the last year of her primary school, and she was bullied at school and went through a really rough time where she came home upset most days, and she didn't want to go to her designated high school. She wanted to go somewhere else, and I said, why? And she's like, I need a fresh start. And I'm like, you're 12, you haven't lived. How do you need a fresh start?
But problems seem so big at that age.
I know. So we started working together and she started posing for me, and I think that whole process was just so empowering. We got hung in art prizes, and she came to the opening nights with me and was filled with just so much joy and excitement. And I remember one of the art prizes, her portrait was hung next to a portrait of Bob Hawke, the former Prime Minister, and he was there when he was still alive. He was there on the opening night, and both of them ended up posing together in front of their front of their paintings.
Importance on the same
I know,
level.
and you know, stuff like that. And then over the years, I had to start paying her. She started demanding that she be paid the same as my other models. Now, so proud of her.
Kathrin, what are your favorite things to do as a family? So you have a daughter who is 19 and your son Jay, how old is he?
He's 14, turning 15 very soon. It's one of these beautiful, gentle souls. You know, I think as a family, we've always loved creating memories together. So I think our favorite things are traveling, exploring places in sort of unconventional ways. We always book ourselves into converted school buses on organic farms, or we stayed in a yurt once. You know, stuff that pushes you out of your comfort zone that you as a city dweller would never come across or do. And they're the most treasured memories.
Kathrin, what's next for you? What are the upcoming exhibitions?
I've got exhibitions booked all the way to the end of next year. There's a couple of solo shows coming up. There's a couple of group shows that I'm really excited about. Currently showing at the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne, telling stories of children during war. And
what a great place.
And my segment is, you know, obviously a child of the Cold War. That's going to be running for almost a year, that exhibition. I've got a solo show in Queensland. I've got a couple group shows internationally, one in Denmark, one in Canada next year. I'm at the Context Miami Art Fair in November. So lots of exciting stuff ahead.
I'm excited about seeing your work in all these other exhibitions. Thank you so much, Kathrin, for having us. It's been an absolute honor visiting your studio where all the magic gets created, and we wish you all the best for your exhibitions.
You have no idea. It's been so lovely having you to the studio. You were an absolute delight. Thank you for coming.